The Supreme Court today upheld the constitutional validity of the landmark Right to Education Act, saying that all schools, even those that don't get aid from the government, will have to keep 25% of their seats for poor students for free. Ever since the Act came into effect in 2010, there have been several contentious issues, including how poor students will be funded, and unaided schools have complained that the law infringes on their autonomy. The question is, can this law actually bridge the glaring social gaps in India, and has infrastructure kept pace?
I have come from a low background family. I stay in Govindpuri Navjeevan camp.
She may live in a Delhi slum, but Right to Education has already transformed 13-year-old Preeti's life. Even as the act was being challenged in court, Lakshman Public School in her neighborhood gave her a seat.
The teachers are very helpful.
India can take joy in many more Preetis as the Supreme Court upholds the right to education, rejecting a group of public interest litigations filed by private schools that argued right to education is unconstitutional. But the court says this session onwards, all private schools and government-aided minority schools will have to reserve 25% seats for poor students in their neighborhood. The admissions will have to be provided at the entry level. The selection of students decided by a lottery. The government has also promised to bear the cost. To what extent the government will bear the cost must be decided together with the state education departments and the schools. But since right to education was being contested in court, no decision was taken. Education experts say the amount will have to be based on average expenditure per child. But since the government cannot afford private school fees, the schools will be expected to shoulder some of the burden as part of their social responsibility.
No legislation is ever perfect, because legislation deals with circumstances that exist. Circumstances change, right? And so people's perception changes. The nature of the economy changes.
There is yet another problem. Resident schools are exempt, also unaided minority schools.
Many of the schools in Tamil Nadu are minority-run school, whether it is aided or unaided. If you take away that chunk of a school out of this act, then there is no purpose in having this act at all.
While the UPA government will be able to give life to its flagship scheme, ensuring education for every child, it also requires to bridge the infrastructure gap. 90% of India's schools don't have the basic facilities like drinking water, toilets, even teachers.
An NDTV Bureau Report.
So now that the Supreme Court has upheld the Right to Education Act and has said that all schools must admit poor students, including private unaided schools, is this a blow to elitism in education, or are there really practical difficulties in implementing this act? Joining us tonight on the program, we have the national spokesperson of the Congress Party, Dr. Abhishek Singhvi. Here in the studio with us, we have Mr. Damodar Prasad Goel, who's the president of the National Federation of Unaided Schools, and they actually went to court against the Right to Education Act. They have strong reservations about it. We have Annie Koshi, the principal of St. Mary's School here in Delhi. We have Ashok Agarwal, who is a lawyer and a right to education activist who has worked on this issue very, very closely. We have Neena Nayak joining us from Bangalore tonight, the chairperson of the Karnataka State Commission for the Protection of Child Rights. Let me first ask Dr. Abhishek Singhvi. Dr. Singhvi, there have been so many reservations that educationists have expressed. And I believe we don't have him yet, so I'm going to actually take this first question to Mr. Goel. Mr. Goel, what is your reaction to the verdict today? Because obviously now the verdict will have to be respected. It is the Supreme Court which has said that. But your reservations on this law have been very, very strong.
No, it is wrongly understood that we were against the admission of 25%. Our fight was for our rights. Our fight was for our fundamental rights. It was for our autonomy. We considered it that placing us a responsibility by way of legislation to admit 25% children is an infringement of our fundamental rights. So we opposed it. So now this is the law of the land. We will abide by it and we will follow it.
What is your biggest concern regarding autonomy?
Biggest concern was that there will be Inspector Raj, there will be day-to-day interference by the government in administration, and more the quality of education will deteriorate. Look here, our objection was that there is provision for not holding back any student up to class 8. Suppose a child gets an admission in class 1 at the age of 6 years, and when he will complete 14 years of his age, he will be entitled for having a certificate of having completed study up to class 8th. So it will be a certificate without any literacy, without any knowledge. So our question was whether this is a right of education or right to schooling only.
Do you have the NDTV Profit app? All the markets, all the news and your own homemade, ready-made portfolio available there for you.
We will right now answer what you should sell, what you should buy when markets are down.
Download at ndtvprofit.com/apps. Get the best app from the channel you trust.